Well, welcome to this episode of King Conversations. I'm here with Minister Davion Stacker, uh, now Morehouse alumnus.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, which is a beautiful thing. I knew you way back when, man. So I'm just got to say initially, I'm extremely proud of the man that you're growing to be. I've known you since high school, and it's been an amazing journey, man. Watching you grow up and do your thing. So, I guess my first question would be, Mr. Stacker. Brother Stacker, is when did you first hear about Morehouse and decide that's where you wanted to go?
Man, that's a
Take it back.
phenomenal question to start off with. I think, you always kind of know, right? And so growing up, I went to the African Centered program here, which was ACE, elementary, middle school, and part of my high school journey. And we were always exposed to HBCUs, right?
Right.
And so I knew about Howard and Hampton and FAMU, and I had cousins that went to Texas Southern and JSU. But when I was in sixth grade, I had an encounter with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was during the King's Day holiday, and I found out where he went to undergraduate. Right, I
Okay.
did my research in sixth grade. I made a poster, and I found out about the notable alum like Spike Lee, Samuel L. Jackson, now Senator Warnock, some of the great preachers, Otis Moss Jr., Otis Moss III, my mentor, Reverend Stephen Green, and really Francois. And I found out all about these type people, and I knew from that point, from sixth grade up until I
Wow.
applied, that
Okay.
Morehouse was where I needed to be.
Now, did you ever go visit Morehouse before you went?
Never went to visit. I
Wow.
just always had a feeling, and I knew that when I had applied my sophomore year in high school, I said I'm gonna get in. I don't know how I'm gonna pay for it. I don't know what's gonna happen. But initially, from that sixth grade year, I knew Morehouse was where I needed to be.
No, that's amazing. I mean, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I decided early on too. I think it was eighth grade for
Hmm.
me, and I never went to go visit, not until freshman orientation. Matter of fact, they had prospective students weekend, and I got the letter in the mail. It was like $250, $300.
Yeah,
And I got it in the mail, and I ran and told my dad. I was like, Daddy, I'm accepted, scholarship money. This is where I'm trying to go.
yes,
I want to
sir.
go. Can I go check it out? And my dad looked at it, looked at the front, looked at the back, looked at me. He said, "Well, this is where you want to go, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is where I want to go. I got to be there." He said, "Well, this is for people that don't know whether or not they want to go. This is so they can try and convince you to come. But since you know, we don't need to spend this money, man." So I didn't see it until I moved into the dorm as well,
That's
man.
right. Same for me, man. When I had got accepted, I was in school when we had just transitioned to Southeast, and I got the letter in the email, and it was like, "You've been accepted. Please send your $350 deposit to hold your spot."
Right,
And so since then, man, it's been a journey. So I've been grateful for every step that I've taken
right.
up until this moment.
I mean that's kind of how we met. The path wasn't easy. I don't remember exactly where we met. I remember seeing you at the Martin Luther King Day community service.
I remember how we met.
You remember how we met?
We were at the King Day service. Just
Okay.
came home. I think it was during the pandemic. I can't
It
remember.
wasn't a pandemic. It was before that, but it seemed like it was a snow day.
It was something that
yeah,
delayed
yeah,
us going
yeah,
back.
Yep.
And I had saw Mr. Evans and all the other Morehouse graduates who were at this event, and I just went up to him. I'm painting, I'm doing the
Right.
work, I'm servicing. They not knowing what's going on with me.
I think we talked before that.
Probably.
I think we talked before that. I told you to come, and then
That's right.
Mr. Gum just happened to be in town, and he was in admissions.
That's right.
And he came in. It's still amazing to me that you called me, and then Mr. Gum came, and I was like, well, Mr. Gum gonna be in town. You can talk directly to him yourself.
That's right. Yeah, that's how it went.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that I think about it. And I saw Mr. Gum there, and Mr. Evans gave me an opportunity first to do service, and then we got into a circle, and we kind of talked about, how I was going to matriculate through Morehouse, and it worked.
It worked. It worked. I mean, and it's a blessing, man. People don't know that Kansas City. I mean, we're definitely a small town, small market when it comes to Morehouse. But we've had two valedictorians.
That's right.
From Kansas City,
That's right.
and one Rhodes Scholar.
That's right.
So it's absolutely unbelievable that such a small town could produce something. But I tell people all the time, kids, young men from Kansas City go to Morehouse and do well because I think we appreciate it.
That's right.
We appreciate it.
I can agree with that. And just seeing the people who have gone before me, the men who have pretty much laid the track for guys like myself to matriculate is something phenomenal to see. And so I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to kind of know all of you Morehouse men who have came from kind of the same, as we say, fabric that I've
Right.
come from, to kind of see how you all are doing well now, with, in your careers and with your families. But you all gave people like myself an opportunity to see something greater than what we see, what we get. So.
No, that's what it's all about. And your time at Morehouse, what did you major in?
Oh
What
yes.
I mean, tell me about your experience.
So when I first got to Morehouse, my original major was of a political science major, and I was a religion minor. Because
Okay.
most people told me that when you go to school, do not major in religion unless you go to Morehouse. But I really
Right.
didn't, take that on. But my first major was poli sci, and then I was doing so well in my religion courses that
Right.
the chair of the department was like, why are you a political science major?
Right.
I was like, maybe one day I want to get involved in politics, maybe go to Congress. One of my idols in the AME church is Reverend Dr. Floyd Flake, and he was a congressman and also a pastor. So that's kind of the route that I wanted to take. And they were like, no, you need to major in religion and minor in poli sci. So I switched my major sophomore year to
Okay.
religion with a minor in political science.
So were you into the ministry before you went to Morehouse, or
Oh,
was that something
yes.
that came out of it? Okay.
Yeah, so I started. Again, I always knew I wanted to be a preacher. When I was 7, I always make a joke. I had my first church.
Okay.
I had my brother, my sister, my little cousin, and then they had their little action figures.
Right.
And I would go and put on. My great grandmother sung in the choir, and she had a choir robe. So
Right.
that would be my preacher's robe. So I would go put on the preacher robe. This robe is 10 times larger than me, and I would get a cardboard box, and I would preach to them at 7. So I always knew I wanted to be a preacher, but I accepted the calling when I was about 15.
Wow.
I preached
Okay.
my initial sermon at 16. I'm licensed to preach in the AME church, and I'm going through the ordination process now. So I always knew I wanted to be a preacher
Right.
from the jump. So Morehouse just kind of molded that aspect of the homiletics and how to develop a sermon and how to preach and how to develop the craft. So
What did you major? I mean, what church
I
did you
grew,
grow up in?
yeah, I grew up in a Greg Tabernacle AME Church,
Okay.
right over here off 37th in Michigan.
Yeah.
I'm a fifth generation member of the church, a fifth
Wow.
generation member of the AME Church. So that's where my roots are. That's where I got started with learning how to read and how to write and how to follow Christ.
Okay, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So when you think about where you are today, and we're gonna back up some, but when you think about where you are today, what would you tell your high school or your elementary school self at Ace? Um, were there struggles and trials along the way, or how did you manage through it?
Yeah, if I could tell myself back then anything now, I think I would just say trust the process.
Okay.
And I managed things back then a little different than I do now because now you have more resources to manage things. But back then, I always leaned on family, and
Okay.
family has been my leaning post even up until today. Even when I find myself not having the answers to certain things, not knowing exactly where to turn, not knowing exactly what to do, my family has always been at the forefront. So I would tell my younger self to trust the process, that Rome wasn't built overnight.
Right.
I watched Gladiator the other night, and he said, the only thing that I have to do now is allow Rome to fall.
Right.
And so just understanding that any good thing takes time, any good thing takes patience, and it won't happen overnight. But
Right.
when it does happen, celebrate the moment and get ready for the next adventure. So
Okay. Celebrate the moment. Get ready for the next adventure.
that's right.
So you make it to Morehouse. Tell me about your Morehouse experience, the extracurriculars and the
Yeah,
dorm life. What was that like?
man, first off, we have the greatest homecoming on the planet. Let me just make that disclaimer to anybody who's watching. Spellhouse Homecoming is phenomenal, but I had the opportunity to serve as the outreach chair for the New Deal Democrats at the time when Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and all the major candidates were running for that election, and President Biden, of course. So I served as the outreach chair for our organization that we had on campus.
Wow.
Then I served as the outreach chair for the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel at Morehouse. Of course, we have our own
Yep.
chapel. Then after I served as the outreach chair, I had then been elected as the vice president of the chapel that 2022 school year, which was like a major role within itself. Also participated in some SGA events, of course. I traveled with the school. I used to go to the Howard Morehouse Classic that's taking place in New York every year
Right.
at the MetLife Stadium. So I was like on the fan dual team for that, and so I always was plugged into something that was going on at Morehouse. Served on the NAACP chapter, the pre-alumni chapter,
Right.
and my last position before I graduated, I was actively involved in the chapel. So
No, that's amazing. I mean, that's probably the most impressive thing about Morehouse is the extracurriculars. You get the education, of course, but being involved in on campus in different various activities,
yeah.
to me, that's where the magic happens.
And it makes you, it shapes you for the real world because it gives you real life experiences, right? SGA is like a major thing on campus, as you
Right.
know, even from the time that you were there until
Right.
now, like SGA is serious, and the chapel is something that's serious and it's involved in the spiritual aspect of the school. And so these organizations give you an opportunity to kind of see what you're going to do outside of those walls, how you're going to manage a budget, how you're going to run a team, and how you're going to do all these things to be successful. So they kind of prepare you for those things.
So at 19, 20 years old, you're learning all this stuff. So you building the tools that you would need to, I guess, run a church.
Yeah, pretty much. And plus, I've already had prior experience before getting into the chapel.
Right.
I served as the 5th district YPD. I served as I got elected on the district level at like 17. And then I was the worship director, second vice president. Then I served as the first vice president for the district. And we have 15 states within the 5th district, including Hawaii and Alaska. So we're overseeing about 2,000 plus youth and young adults.
Wow.
So I had that experience prior to getting to Morehouse. And I had ran for re-election when I was at Morehouse my first year. My Morehouse brothers helped me win this campaign.
Wow.
I had to fly to California to make the people try to vote for me. But my Morehouse brothers kind of helped me with my digital campaign platform and
Right.
the slogans and the flyers. And so, I had that experience. And then, running the chapel and working with Dean Carter, as you know, can be something within his whole self.
Right.
Writing 15-page papers and developing sermons. And so, 19, 20 years old, man, I'm grinding. How do I pay for this,
Right.
for this event? Or, we can't do this time in a board meeting. How can we raise money? And, little stuff like that kind of help prepare me for the church realm.
Man, the future is definitely bright. We can't just skip over Dean Carter though.
Oh, yes.
What does Dean Carter mean to your matriculation and just developing you as a man?
Yeah, I met Dean Carter in SO.
Okay.
He already knew I was a preacher, knew I was AME. I wasn't like a typical Baptist preacher that normally comes through Morehouse. And being AME, I was like, at the time, it was only 2 of us, Gabriel Cloud and myself. And Gabriel, who was my big brother at the time, while he was at Morehouse, kind of helped me, matriculate through things. But Dean Carter has shaped me, molded me, developed me into the preacher that I am today.
Okay.
He's taught me how to he always says, if you're not reading at least one book once a week, or reading something, if you're not just reading, like New York Times, or if you're not reading something, then what are you doing? He's taught me just to sit down and just read something, to be in tune with
Mm-hmm.
everything that's going on. He's taught me how to develop the craft of preaching, the homiletics. He's taught me
What the word homiletics? You can't just, you throw it out there. Like, what is homiletics?
Yeah, homiletics, man. When it's basically the craft and the style of preaching, and how it looks for you, right?
Okay.
And so Dean Carter tries to teach all of us that, develop your own style, but while you're developing, you need to learn how to craft the sermon, put it together. He always says it's not just about making the crowd feel good.
Right.
He said, but what can the people get after you leave? And so Dean Carter I've had a chance to be one of his students. And that's a whole different aspect of Dean that you'll get being a student. He's the professor. You're already writing 20-page papers.
Right.
As a sophomore and freshman in college, Dean is already preparing you for these things. And so now that I'm in seminary, Dean, try to talk to Dean at least once a week, and he always says, see, what I told you while you were here has prepared you for seminary. Right. And everything that I'm going through in seminary, Dean has had told us prior to us getting there. And so Dean means the world to me. I hope every day to make not only him proud, but also what he has taught me, I hope to pour out into others.
Right.
I hope to let others know that everybody doesn't have a mentor like Dean Carter. But I was fortunate enough to be and sit at his foot
Right.
and just soak in all of the knowledge that he has. And as you know, 40 plus years at Morehouse, served under many presidents, just a wealth of knowledge and intake. And so Dean means the world to me. Even now, like I said, I keep up with him. When he came to New York, he said, I've reached the AME mountaintop. And so he's a great man. And if anybody ever, I say a lot of things. I'm grateful for a lot of things, but I'm just grateful for the opportunity to have gone to Morehouse and to have had mentors like Dean Carter.
So every time I talk to you, it's something new that you enrolled in, aspiring to be. You graduated from Morehouse in what year?
This May 24.
May,
May 23. I'm sorry.
you graduated from Morehouse in 23.
23.
And so that makes you how old now?
I'm 23.
23. Okay. So after Morehouse, what'd you do? What was the next step?
So I enrolled at Emory Candler School of Theology at Emory
Okay.
University. And so I'm pursuing my Master's of Divinity.
Okay.
And my Master's of Business Administration. I'm a dual degree.
Right.
But more focused on the MDiv in this season that I'm in now. Of course, I have to have an MDiv to pastor in the AME Church.
Okay.
And so I'm I should be graduating here in 26
Okay.
with my MDiv and MBA.
Okay.
So as soon as I left Morehouse, I didn't want to take a leap year, gap year, as they say, but I wanted to continue to go through and get that master's. And so it has been a journey within itself.
So at Emory, have you been able to connect with Dr. Greg Ellison?
Dr. Greg Ellison, yes, sir. A bunch of actually, Mr. Evans put me in contact with Dr. Ellison. And when I first got to Candler, of course, reached out to him, and he was like, whatever you need, just let me know. And so it's a great community, very supportive. I went hybrid this past semester, of course, when I moved to New York.
Right.
But they still keep in close contact, keep in touch, make sure that you're doing and being successful. And I kind of told them, leaving Morehouse, a small, knit community, I kind of wanted that same feel.
Right.
And he reassured me that Candler was the place to be for that community aspect, and not just to feel like just a regular student, but to feel like family.
Right.
And that's one thing that Candler has given me through Dr. Ellison, of course, is that family feel.
Okay, good deal, good deal. I don't know if you know, but I may have told you, but he has ties to Kansas City.
Okay.
His family is on 28th and Benton, and they go to St. James.
All right. Yeah.
So they
Small world.
small world, small world, small world.
And shout out to Dr. Ellison.
Yeah, that's
Nice
my
hats.
guy. A good deal. So what's going on in New York?
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to serve as a fellow at the Greater Allen Cathedral, AME Cathedral of New York, under Reverend Stephen Green, who's one of our Morehouse brothers, class of
Right.
14. So he called me in, and I served there in youth ministry and kind of helped to keep the youth ministry afloat. We developed some great systems. We got digitalized. We went on social media, Instagram, TikTok. We grew our numbers in youth ministry. And so I got there September 27th, and then I left, didn't leave officially, but my tenure ended there January 2nd.
Okay.
And so had a great time, a great learning experience for me. I'm grateful to Reverend Green for calling a 23-year-old in to continue the work that had already been done under his leadership. And so it's a great experience, great time. I love New York. I love what I had done there. Every day I always tell myself I feel like I made an impact because I still keep in contact with a bunch of the people that are still there. So I had a great opportunity up there, and it has taught me and made me not only a better man, but a better preacher, of course. Just being in that environment and coming in as a new person and trying to follow the vision that the pastor has, and did all those things in 4 short months.
Wow. Yeah.
So
I mean, you definitely in hyper speed.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
where do you find the energy? Because it's always something moving in a direction, learning this, learning that, to study, to write. Every time I look on Facebook, you flying to a new city and preaching. I see you in a lot of pulpits. Where's the core of the energy come from?
I think for me, anytime God gives me, and I always told God, even when I was at Morehouse, I promised God that if you open the door and if you allowed me to walk through it, I would give you my very best.
Okay.
And that's my passion. Every time I end my day, I journal. And everybody who's watching, journaling, please do it if you can. But I journal because I have a chance to reconnect with myself. And my passion comes from what can I do to make the world a better place? What can I do to help somebody else along the way, as they say, so my living won't be in vain? And so I think that what drives me, what pushes me every day, is not only Christ, but also knowing that I have been given an opportunity that most people haven't.
Right.
That most people have not walked where I've had the opportunity to walk, or sit where I've had the opportunity to sit. And I've had great mentors and people in my life, such as yourself, who have allowed me to do these things. And so I think that's what drives me every day,
Right.
to get up and do something different, to do better than what I did the day before. And if I can help one person throughout my day, then I know that I have to keep going, right? I tell you something personal. I've gone through something recently where I had to get off social media for like a week. And this happened January 17th. And I got off Instagram, Facebook, everything January 17th. And a couple of days had passed. And I'm thinking, when you do stuff, you don't think people watch.
Right.
And I had got a phone call from somebody who I had worked with previously. And they were like, hey, man, I haven't seen you on social media. Is everything okay? Because I wake up every morning and I look for your inspiration to start my day. That's how I start my day.
Wow.
And I was like, when I hung up the phone, I said, okay, this thing is bigger than me. Right? I can't allow what I'm going through to stop me from giving what God has given me to people.
Right.
And I took a 7-day hiatus from social media. Like I said, I was going through the motion and the phases and the relationships and try to balance in the relationship and going through that phase. But in that moment, God revealed to me that even while you're going through, does not mean that you can stop the ministry, that you can stop inspiring
That's
people.
good. That's good. Yeah.
And so even while you're going through, yeah, it may suck at the moment. Yeah, it may hurt, but you still have to give it your all, because people are looking and people are watching and people are seeking to follow me. And in order for them to follow me, I need you to do what you need to do. And so I took that, man, when I had that revelation with God, I said, okay. And that's what drives me to this moment, like today. Although I'm still going through the motion and the phases, it keeps me sane just to know that I'm helping other people.
Right.
So,
No, that is amazing. You just have no idea how much it is an inspiration to me. One of the things that I thought about was when I went to Morehouse, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, but there's just a world out there that you don't know about.
yeah.
The world is so much bigger, and in recruiting, I tell people and parents that Morehouse is a gateway to the rest of everything.
That's right.
And so just going there, I do a lot of recruiting, trying to get students to go there, and just helping them to understand that once you get there, the world is so big and that you can touch so many.
Yeah.
But first, you just have to see it. So it's inspiring to me to know that I've been able to play just a minute part in keeping you at Morehouse and watching you develop and grow, because that gives me the energy and inspiration, because there's more Davion stackers.
Oh, yeah. And
There's more kids from KCP. But matter of fact, backing up, when I say kids from Kansas City do well, the two valedictorians, public school.
Yeah.
One from Lincoln, KCPS, one from Grandview. And then the Rhodes Scholar, he was also from public school.
That's right.
So it's everyday kids in Kansas City can go be great on a national level, global level. So hearing you say that, man, is definitely inspirational.
yeah, and people like you, and I don't want to get emotional about it, but just to have people who really value you and see you, right? You're an inner city student, and you may not have the background or the funds to do certain things.
Right.
But I can tell you, people like Mr. Evans will try to make sure that if you can't go to it, at least it can come to you. And they've exposed me to so much. And I don't want to get to call the names of all the people who have helped me in this journey. But just, speaking since we're here, he has exposed me to so many things. And like he said, he played a pivotal role in keeping me at Morehouse. And so, for anybody who's watching, if you just trust, as I always say, trust the process. You may not know how, what, where, but trust me when I say this, that if anybody knows, it's me, that if you stick in it, if you trust the process and rely on your community, everything will work out.
Right. I do have to drop a name, and this is how we met. Miss Chanel Smith.
That's right.
What did she mean to you?
Oh, my goodness. When Miss Smith was at Southeast, I think it was the second year we had been taken over by KCPS. Actually it was Southeast and we were still Ace, but we were Ace inside of Southeast.
Right, right.
So she had taken over that part. And we were collegiate preppy kids. Let me just throw that out there. And so when this merger had happened, it was a lot of stuff that we had never seen before.
Right.
Let me just say that. And so Miss Smith was over the ACE part, and so she had brought in her HBCU experience and her reasoning to why we need to go to a HBCU, especially being in an African centered school.
Right.
And so we had I think I want to say a sophomore or junior in high school. But we had she started to prepare us even as sophomores looking at HBCUs we wanted to go to. It was something called what was it called? The
HBCU Walking Billboard.
HBCU Walking Billboard. And then she made us get on the Common App.
Yep.
As sophomores and juniors in high school. And so she introduced us to her program, the HBCU Walking Billboard, and a lot of people came in and talked about HBCUs, and people who went to like Fisk and FAMU and Morehouse, and all these people were like in front of us because Ms. Smith had brought them in because she valued the HBCU experience and education. And so as a junior, she had us on the the Common App. We were applying to schools, sending stuff in just to get started. And then senior year, she was like, y'all should be good because I taught y'all already, what to do, how to do it. She had us on the Congressional Black Caucus scholarship site, looking at scholarships. And so Miss Smith has been another person who I am grateful for just exposing me to the HBCU life.
Yeah,
And I still participate in HBCU Walking Billboard. I go to the send-off every summer that we have here in Kansas City when I'm here. I participate in, like, our day is February 14th, so I'll be posting on social media with our stuff on. So I keep up with HBCU Walking Billboard.
Yeah, shout out to Miss Smith. She's definitely a jewel to the community. And she was doing the HBCU Walking Billboard, in my opinion, before it was popular.
Yeah.
Last 4 or 5 years, it's really, really caught fire. But she was on it day one. I'm going to rep my school, and I want everybody else to rep their school and teach, as she would say, teach these babies what's going on.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for her for that because, like I said, a lot of people, if you don't know, you don't know. Right. And I travel pretty much a lot, and most people know about Morehouse, of course. But I have friends who go to graduated from Hampton and Howard, man. And the community is like, it may seem large, but it's really small.
Very
right?
small.
Us HBCU grads, we stick together, man. Although there's only one real 1867, and we know all that type of stuff. But the HBCU world, man, is phenomenal because you never know who you're going to meet. One thing that Mr. Edmonds always taught me, and I do it to this day, I always travel in Morehouse paraphernalia.
Wow.
Because you never know who's going to be in there. Could be the pilot. It could be a corporate person in the airport or the airline. And so I always make sure I have something on that says Morehouse because you never know who you're going to see, who you're going to meet. You may even, one time I just had on a Morehouse hoodie and I ran into Senator Warnock.
Wow,
and
wow.
Senator Warnock was like, my Morehouse brother. We stopped, took a picture, and he was like, go get some lunch. Let's get some lunch while we sitting in the airport with a security detail, man. And so you just never know who you're going to run into. So I keep my Morehouse paraphernalia on.
That's amazing, man. Like, just the places you go. You said you're going somewhere this week, and you flying out tomorrow. Where you headed?
Yeah, I'm headed to Philadelphia. It's our Founders Week for the AME Church, and we live in a pivotal time, and so we're going to Philly. Of course, we'll have worship experiences, but we're also going to talk about how to be intentional with our social justice matters in a post-Trump election. Okay. And so going to see how we can not be weary while we're working.
So when you own this mission, are you taking any Kansas City Chiefs gear, or are you?
Well, I'm headed to Philly, so I think I'm going to take something Chiefs because I'm in their territory,
right.
And I know we're going to win on Sunday.
For sure.
So of course I'm probably going to have something, probably a ball cap that says Kansas City Chiefs on as I go through the Philly airport and spend some time in Philly this weekend.
Will you be in Philly for the Super Bowl, or will you be able to come?
I'll be back home for the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I fly in just before it starts.
Okay.
So I'll be going through the airport on Sunday.
Right.
as we get started. So we'll see how that goes for me.
Right.
So we know Philadelphia fans, if there's anybody who's probably gonna watch this, go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. Go Chiefs all day long. So when you really think about your journey, and it's just amazing to me that you only 23 because you talk with so much depth and so much wisdom. What do you say to the kids in Kansas City that aren't necessarily understanding college, understanding getting away and the importance? What words of inspiration do you have for them to just one just finish high school
Hmm.
and be on the straight and narrow? I'm sure there were challenges that you came across entering ministry at a certain age, at a young age, and having that discipline. What can you say to inspire the youth just to stay on the path to greatness?
Yeah, just if I could say one thing to them, I would be straight up. Let me before I go there. We need people to be realist in this time and let people know what it is and what it ain't. And if
Okay.
I could tell, some young person, some youth in the city who's trying to make it, who's trying to finish high school and think about something afterwards, is expect the unexpected.
Okay.
Believe in yourself that you can do anything that you set your mind to. Understand that this world is bigger and larger than Kansas City. Love my city, greatest place in the world, in my opinion.
Right.
But there's something more, and if you just allow yourself to finish wherever you are, and push yourself to go through the next door, I promise, as they say, there's milk and honey that awaits. There are things that your eyes have not seen. There are places that your feet have not touched. There are things that your ears have not even heard yet. And so if you would just push yourself, just to go just a little bit more, and get involved. HBCU Walking Billboard is a great place to start. If you're in high school, start there.
Right.
Start looking at the social media and start inquiring about, if you were to do something, where would you go and what would that look like? Start looking at the different HBCUs around the country, and if not an HBCU, start looking at the different colleges and start putting yourself in position to be great.
Right.
It starts with you. And if you don't want it, nobody else can give it to you. But if you go out and you're hungry for it and you want to be successful and you want to be different, stay the course. I can tell you, high school was annoying. Was ready to get out of high school, but you have to finish first in order to get to the next level. This thing is a building block. Think about it, right? You go through life, you get to high school, and you're like, okay, do I want to finish high school? What do I want to do? You finish high school, that's a block. If you either go into a trade or college, that's another block. But each step, you should go higher and higher. So don't be stagnant where you are. It may be comfortable for you, but push yourself to be more, and look at others who are already doing what you want to do one day, right? Look at, like I said, go back to read something, and write something, and just imagine yourself being in that space. And I promise you, if you can imagine it, if you can dream it, if you can trust it, you'll get there.
Now, to the person that looks at you and says, "Man, your life is just perfect.
Oh, please.
It's all easy." What when you at your lowest, or when you were at your lowest, or when you have that bad, horrible day,
Hmm.
how do you become grounded and refocused, and it doesn't cause you to spiral out of control?
Yeah.
We talk a lot about mental health.
Hmm.
What gives you that balance to bounce back and take that lick and be like, okay, that was the message.
Yeah.
I got that. Now I need to dust myself off and move on. How do you stay in that positive headspace?
Yeah. So as I said, mental health is important, especially like post pandemic. We just went through an election that did not make sense. Plus all your personal stuff.
Right.
So everything is thrown on top of you. And like for me, people look for me for inspiration, right? I have to
Right.
continue to preach the gospel. I have to manage a Master of Divinity program. I was managing a relationship, and people may think, like you said, like, man, he is moving and doing a thing, and every time you look, he's somewhere. But when I get in those somber moments, as I've been the last 2 weeks, I'm gonna be vulnerable. Since and I have a date since January 17th. These last 2 weeks have not been the easiest for me.
Okay.
Adjusting to different things, and like I said, a relationship that was supposed to be and it's not anymore. And in those moments, I draw back and I go back to the board per se, like a coach, right?
Okay.
I've done well. I'm grateful for my family and community. I've done this, but how am I pouring back into Davion?
Right.
right? How am I ministering to myself? So I go to the board, and what I've done the last 2 weeks is I've tried to feel all of my emotions. You know, as black men, they tell us, "Oh, you're supposed to be hard, and
Right.
you're
You
not
got to be
supposed
tough.
to cry, and you're supposed to be tough, and you're the backbone." And no, we need to just sit for a second. And so for the last weeks, I've just sat and I have pondered and thought about certain things. And so I've allowed myself to go through the emotions. And so the first week when I was going through what I'm going through, the first week I allowed myself to feel the anxiety for once
Okay.
and feel the hurt and feel the sadness and feel the abandonment. That's the first week, right? So I felt all that and the sleepless nights and the breaking out into sweats. And I'm at the lowest I've ever been in 23 years,
Wow.
right? But yet I'm still, while I'm going through that first week of emotions, I'm journaling and I'm reading my Bible. And I'm reading that the Lord is closer to the brokenhearted. And I'm reading that weeping may only endure for a night, but joy will come in the morning, right? And I'm listening to Reverend Green on Sunday mornings, and I'm trying to stay grounded, but yet I find myself sinking. This is the first week,
First
right?
week.
This first week of me going through what I'm going through recently. And I'm like, okay, I can't stay here. So this second week, which is this past week that we're finishing up, I'm starting to realize me, right? That you cannot put everything ahead of you. So what does this look like for you? Getting off social media for a second, right? Although people want you to say something and be there and do that, draw back. Listening to music is my comfort zone, right? So I'm listening to different genres of music. While I'm doing this, I'm reading and I'm writing. While I'm at my lowest moment.
Right.
And I think what refocuses me and what gives me that drive to get back in the fight. After these 2 weeks, you can only be sad for so long. Right. You can only be down for so long. You can only have this anxiety for so long to where you have to look at yourself and be like, okay, bro, this may have been a learning moment from God to tell you that while you were doing your thing and while you were being cool, not to forget why you are where you are.
Right.
That is solely because of me. And so God allowed me these last 2 weeks, and I'm not all the way healed from it. I'm going through the motions still, and I still have to get up in the morning and get on the plane and get to where I need to be while I'm going through this. But what grounds me and refocuses me is knowing that God has a bigger plan and picture for me.
Right.
I didn't just get through Morehouse and went through what I went through and graduated for nothing, right? I have not gotten the candler for nothing. I have not met certain people and preached at certain places for nothing. And just knowing that it's not all about me, but it's about what I can do to help the next person. So while I'm going through this season, while I'm going through these motions, while I'm going through this phase, I'm still trusting God. Amen. I'm still leaning on the word. And I may not be theological sound when I say this, but sometimes, these last 2 weeks I've studied and I've read, as I always do, and I've questioned God.
Right.
Why allow me to have this certain type of heartbreak, and why allow me to go through this while I'm at, in my opinion, the peak of where you want me to be.
Right.
And sometimes God has to bring you back down from the peak to humble you and help you realize that, yeah, you got it, but just know I gave it to you.
I gave it to you.
And so when God gives you that humbling moment, which I'm going through now, God will elevate you back to where you need to be, to know that you can be a vessel and an example for others. That if you just trust me, if you just love me, if you just put everything that you have in me, that I'll make everything else happen and matter.
That's powerful, man. I liken that last part to a slingshot. Sometimes you gotta draw back, and then it's gonna propel you forward in a straight, fast direction. Couple things you touched on that we got to talk about, man. I'm big on if my dad got us to here, this should be my son's starting point. And he gets us to here, I get us to here, and so forth, and keep growing and growing and growing. So I'm amazed at such a young age. I'm taking mental notes. I'm learning. I'm gonna go back and watch this and take some notes because I'm learning from you.
Yes, sir.
And that's the part that I love about it. But that also leads into legacy. And and legacy is a big one, and it's becoming bigger for me honestly because my son is at Morehouse now,
That's right.
second year, and I was excited, oh my son, little baby, they wearing t-shirts
That's
coming to
right.
homecoming. You saw them at
Yes,
homecoming
sir.
before they were there, it's cool, whatever, whatever. But when they get there,
Mm-hmm.
and Dean Carter is still there.
Mm-hmm.
And my son had a class with Dr. Hollingsworth who was still there.
That's
I
right.
had Dr. Hollingsworth.
Yes, sir.
The element of legacy starts to become real.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, okay, I did pour some things into him and he's moving at an accelerated level because he had a plan.
That's right.
Um, and you may not even have an answer for this, but what is Davion's legacy? And I know at 23 it's early to start talking about legacy, but the Bible says a good man or a great man leaves an inheritance for his kids'
Yeah.
kids, and you have none of those yet, but you are building a legacy. What is your legacy?
I think that's a powerful question, and it's a question that I'm probably going to think about even after this. But the legacy, if I was to, if God had called me to the heavens tonight,
Right.
the legacy that I want to leave behind is that I gave the best of my service with what I had.
Mm.
That I did the best that I could with everything that I had. That I was a go-getter. That I made things happen with what I had. And while I was doing that, I also inspired and helped others along the way. And I think that that's what I would want my legacy to be. As they say, may the works I've done speak for me, right?
Wow.
People may never remember my name. People may never remember what I've done for them. But people, I think, will always remember, as they say, how you made them feel. And if I have made anybody feel good about themselves, or made anybody feel inspired, or made anybody feel like they can go on just a little while longer, then I feel like my legacy, that's my legacy right there.
Right.
That I was able to help somebody at their lowest moment, that I was able to inspire somebody when they didn't have any inspiration, that I was able to be an example that a black boy from the inner city, grew up on 15th and Jackson,
Wow.
has come this far.
Mm-hmm.
In life at 23, just to be that level of inspiration, I would say I would want to be my legacy. And as I, whatever God allows me to do and see and be, I hope that my legacy, even if I do have children someday, would be like Mr. Evans, to prepare my children to go further, right? To go beyond the call of action, to go beyond the call of duty, by helping them plan whatever they need to be planned. So I think my legacy right now at 23, I would say, will be the person who was able to be there for those who couldn't be there for themselves, to be a voice for those who couldn't be a voice for themselves, to be a helping hand when people didn't have help. And so I think that's what I would want my legacy to be.
You done hit home. I don't think I've told anybody this. At 76 years old, my dad passed. The last thing he said to me is, do the best you can with what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to say that at 23, I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. What I'm gonna encourage you to do is stay focused on that legacy, because and I'm looking at life as cycles. Like, I graduated from Morehouse in '98. So my class now, they're becoming CEOs and CFOs and owners, and in Forbes, and watch CNN, and
Yes.
classmates are making commentary about the real world. So right now you finding all the pieces. Like you said, you saw Warnock, heavily connected in the AME church. Met Dr. Ellison at Candler. You spent some time in New York. You flying out to Philly. So like you picking up all of these pieces. And what I'm encouraging you to do is, in some kind of way, file and catalog those pieces, because they it's not just going to Philly for the weekend. That's gonna come back around later in life, and you'll be able to make calls. My niece is at Spelman, and she wants to get into the sports world. And I got friends in LA for sports teams. I got some friends, I got friends that are sports agents. So she's talking to people, but that network, that Spellhouse network, is definitely a part of the network.
Oh, yes.
And just the network in general. But find a way to foster those relationships and stay in contact with people, because it is going to all come together for that grand master plan. You may not know what it is now, but these pieces that you're putting down and picking up, God got a plan for you.
Yes, sir.
So
I believe
embrace
that.
that.
Yes,
Embrace
sir.
that. Embrace that.
Grateful for that. As you said, this thing is so funny. I always say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. One thing that I always tell people, and this was a message that I always give. It always stays with me, that this life is like a puzzle, and we're the puzzle pieces, and God is the architect. And while our pieces are scattered all over the place, and we're trying to put the pieces together, God already knows where each piece needs to be. And while we're trying to figure it out, God has already worked the whole thing out. And if we just trust the architect with the puzzle will come together. And I think what you just said was a confirmation for me today, to allow, even though the puzzle may be a little fuzzy right now and pieces all over the place, to trust the process and allow the pieces to connect, is mind blowing, because I just had that thought about the master architect in the puzzle. Right. So grateful for those words and wisdom, and I'll keep them right here as I move along, because there's many things that Mr. Evans has told me throughout the last 6-7 years, that he just don't know, I still think about today. So thank you.
No, I definitely appreciate you taking time to come in, man. Can you tell people where to find you on social media so they can be inspired on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook. My name, Davion Stacker. You can follow me on Instagram, dstacker._. Whenever I preach, I always put up where I'm going to be. I'm actually preaching third Sunday here in Kansas City, at 3 o'clock at my home church for a Black History program. So, you all are welcome to come and join us then. And that's where you can find me. And this won't be my last time here. Of course, we'll get back together, hopefully after this Super Bowl.
Most definitely,
and do that. But I'm grateful for the opportunity just to come on and just to have a conversation and dialogue.
Is there anything that you need from the community, or for the alums, or for anyone that may hear this? Anything that you need?
Your prayers, of course, and as a seminary student, anything is always. If you ever feel like I'm on your mind, just give me a call, and I'll be glad to answer it.
Right.
But just keep me in prayer.
Okay.
For sure. And Mr. Evans, I try to keep up with him at least once every other week and kind of tell him what I'm doing and talk to him. So it'd be nice to reach out, to some of you all who will watch this. And if you ever just need, if you want to give me your number, your email, anything, I'm sure he'll give them to me. So definitely your prayers is what I need.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.